This is Land of Havilah, 1 Kings 2. Solomon is on the throne, but David's still alive. He's going to give Solomon some instructions before he passes away. Verse 1. Now the days of David came near that he should die, and he commanded Solomon his son, saying, I am going the way of all the earth. You be strong, therefore, and show yourself a man. Comment. Be strong and show yourself a man. That was David's advice specifically to Solomon, but it's a general commandment for the Christian as well. 1 Corinthians 16:13, quote, Stand firm in the faith, act like men, be strong, end quote. The verb there is andrizo, meaning act like a man, but also meaning be responsible and courageous, so it applies to everyone. The point is to be strong in the faith. God is strong, and since He's with us, we should be strong as a matter of faith. Stand firm in the faith, be strong and courageous. David's still commanding Solomon, verse 3, And keep the instruction of Yahweh your God, to walk in His ways, to keep His statutes, His commandments, His ordinances, and His testimonies, according to that which is written in the law of Moses, that you may prosper in all that you do and wherever you turn yourself. Comment. David says, Do according to that which is written in the law of Moses. This was Yahweh's covenant with Israel at the time, that they should keep and fulfill and perform the law. And if they do so, Yahweh would make them prosperous. Leviticus 26, 3 through 12. Specifically for the king, Yahweh said through Moses that the king should write out a copy of the law for himself and read it all the days of his life and not turn away from doing it, so that his throne and the throne of his descendants will be secure. Deuteronomy 17, 18 through 20. There was never a commandment for the common man to read the law every day. The common man might be illiterate, for example, but for the king, he should read it every day, quote, read from it all the days of his life. Yahweh set up the law as the key to success for Israel, and horrible catastrophes will result from ignoring it. Leviticus 26, 14 through 46. The law was for the common man as well, and by law, he should stand at the Feast of Booths every 7 years to hear a reading of the entire law, Deuteronomy 31:11. Now, for you and me, the new covenant in Christ is different with respect to the law. It's not a covenant of pure law. There are still commandments, but because of the Holy Spirit in us, the commandments are easy to keep and not grievous, 1 John 5:3. But that's for another day. David continues, verse 4, Then Yahweh may establish His word which He spoke concerning me, saying, If your children are careful of their way, to walk before me in truth with all their heart and with all their soul, there shall not fail you, He said, a man on the throne of Israel. Comment. That was the word of the Lord that came to David by the prophet Nathan in 2 Samuel chapter 7. Yahweh said that David would have a descendant on the throne forever. That prophecy has its ultimate fulfillment in Jesus, who's descended from David and king forever. As the angel told Mary about Jesus, quote, The Lord will give him the throne of his father David, and he will reign over the house of Jacob forever. There will be no end to his kingdom, Luke 1:32 and 33. Now David will command Solomon about 3 men in particular, verse 5. Moreover, you know also what Joab the son of Zeruiah did to me, even what he did to the 2 captains of the armies of Israel, to Abner the son of Ner, and to Amasa the son of Jether, whom he killed, and shed the blood of war in peace, and put the blood of war on his sash that was around his waist, and in his shoes that were on his feet. Do therefore according to your wisdom, and don't let his gray head go down to Sheol in peace. Comment. Joab is David's nephew and longtime commander of the army. He's done some outstanding things in the military arena and in some of the advice he's given, which proved golden, 2 Samuel 19:7 and 2 Samuel 24:3. But he's a murderer. More recently, he supported Adonijah's bid for the throne behind David's back. It's difficult to say why David tolerated Joab from the day he killed Abner long ago. But now David tells Solomon, I'm charging you, don't let his gray head go down to Sheol in peace, verse 7. But show kindness to the sons of Barzillai, the Gileadite, and let them be among those who eat at your table, for so they came to me when I fled from Absalom your brother. Comment. Barzillai was one of David's supporters during his time of need when he was on the run from Absalom. When David was at his lowest, Barzillai came through in a big way. He gave massive amounts of material support to David for him and the exiles that were with him. So Barzillai went to tremendous expense to support David at that critical moment when it looked unlikely that David would ever be in a position to pay him back. Even though Barzillai has passed away by now, David tells Solomon, "We owe him, son. Make good on it. Make sure Barzillai's sons always have whatever they need." Proverbs 27:10, quote, "Do not forsake your own friend or your father's friend." Verse 8. "Behold, there is with you Shimei the son of Gera, the Benjamite of Bahurim, who cursed me with a grievous curse in the day that I went to Mahanaim. But he came down to meet me at the Jordan, and I swore to him by Yahweh, saying, I will not put you to death with the sword. Now therefore don't hold him guiltless, for you are a wise man, and you will know what you ought to do to him. And you shall bring his gray head down to Sheol with blood." Comment: David said, "You are a wise man." Wisdom will be Solomon's defining characteristic. During the same period of time that Barzillai helped, Shimei cursed and threw dirt and stones at David and his supporters as they were fleeing Jerusalem. When David came back into the kingdom, Shimei ran to the Jordan River to apologize, and David said he wouldn't kill him, but now he says to Solomon, "Bring his gray head down to Sheol with blood." So those two men, Shimei and Barzillai, represent the opposites, those who supported the Anointed One during hard times and those who opposed him. In our time, the Anointed One is Christ, and he says, "If you have done it to the least of these, you have done it to me," Matthew 25:40. There are always people in the world who are at a low point. If we curse them, we're in danger of going down to Sheol with blood. If we help them, it's as if we've helped the Anointed One himself in a time of need. There will be a great separation at the throne of Christ, according to whether we have been like Barzillai in lending support or like Shimei by cursing and failing to help, Matthew 25:31 through 46. Now in the next verse we come to an epic landmark, verse 10. David slept with his fathers and was buried in David's city. Comment: They buried David in the city of David, which is Jerusalem, 2 Samuel 5:7. We don't get any mention of it until we get to 1 Chronicles, but before David died, he made extensive preparations for the building of the temple. Just as Yahweh gave Moses the design for the tabernacle, Yahweh gave David the design for the temple, and from that, David drew up the blueprints. David also laid up for the temple project vast amounts of gold, silver, brass, iron, cedar, and cut stone, and David identified workmen, 1 Chronicles 22 and 28. So with the blueprints, the materials, and the workmen already in place, it was just a matter of Solomon getting started. We call it Solomon's temple, but David had a big hand in it, verse 11. The days that David reigned over Israel were 40 years. He reigned 7 years in Hebron, and he reigned 33 years in Jerusalem. Comment: David became king of the tribe of Judah at the age of 30, 2 Samuel 5:4. Then after that, king of all Israel. In total, he reigned 40 and a half years, 2 Samuel 5:5, which makes him 70 or 71 at the time of his death. Arguably, he's the most lovable and heroic figure in the Old Testament, and definitely the most outstanding in terms of being a forerunner or foreshadowing figure of the Christ. His defining feature was the one mentioned at the very outset. He was a man after God's own heart, 1 Samuel 13:14. We knew that about him before we even knew his name. But now we move on to a new era, verse 12. Solomon sat on David his father's throne, and his kingdom was firmly established. Then Adonijah, the son of Haggith, came to Bathsheba, the mother of Solomon. Comment: Adonijah tried to be king in the last chapter. Now he's come to see Solomon's mother. Still in verse 13. She said, "Do you come peaceably?" He said, "Peaceably." He said, "Moreover, I have something to tell you." She said, "Say on." He said, "You know that the kingdom was mine, and that all Israel set their faces on me that I should reign. However, the kingdom is turned around and has become my brother's, for it was his from Yahweh. Now I ask one petition of you. Don't deny me." She said to him, "Say on." He said, "Please speak to Solomon the king, for he will not tell you no, that he give me Abishag the Shunammite as wife." Comment: Abishag's the beautiful young lady from Shunem who kept David warm in his old age. Adonijah wants her, verse 18. Bathsheba said, "All right, I will speak for you to the king." Comment: Bathsheba doesn't see any problem with it. She'll speak to Solomon about it, verse 19. Bathsheba therefore went to King Solomon to speak to him for Adonijah. The king rose up to meet her and bowed himself to her and sat down on his throne and caused a throne to be set for the king's mother, and she sat on his right hand. Comment: notice what Solomon did for his mother. He bowed to her and he kept a second throne for her. When she came in, he called for her throne to be set beside his throne on his right hand. So he's honoring his mother, as the commandment says, honor your father and your mother. So that's a picture for us of those two thrones, that we should honor our parents. But coming up, that doesn't mean we always need to do what they say when we're adults. Verse 20. Then she said, I ask one small petition of you, don't deny me. The king said to her, Ask on, my mother, for I will not deny you. She said, Let Abishag the Shunammite be given to Adonijah your brother as wife. King Solomon answered his mother, Why do you ask Abishag the Shunammite for Adonijah? Ask for him the kingdom also, for he is my elder brother, even for him and for Abiathar the priest, and for Joab the son of Zeruiah. Comment: Solomon says that would put my throne at risk. In the last chapter, Adonijah obtained chariots and runners to go in front as status symbols to prepare Israel for him to be king. To have the wives of the former king is the same thing. They're status symbols. They're the privilege of the new king, as it was when David had Saul's wives, 2 Samuel 12:8. Of course, Solomon won't have his father's wives because of the father-son relationship. It would be unlawful to take the wife of one's father. And neither should Adonijah, for the same reason, and for the reason of it being a symbol of the throne. Solomon's not falling for it. Verse 23. Then King Solomon swore by Yahweh, saying, God do so to me and more also, if Adonijah has not spoken this word against his own life. Comment: in other words, I'm going to execute Adonijah over this. Solomon said in the last chapter that Adonijah would live or die depending on whether he proved himself worthy. He just proved himself unworthy. Verse 24. Now therefore, as Yahweh lives, who has established me and set me on my father David's throne, and who has made me a house as he promised, surely Adonijah shall be put to death today. King Solomon sent Benaiah the son of Jehoiada, and he fell on him so that he died. Comment: Benaiah is the leader of the special forces who was on Adonijah's do not invite list. Solomon tapped him to execute Adonijah. Now Solomon will deal with Abiathar, the old priest that supported Adonijah. Verse 26. To Abiathar the priest, the king said, Go to Anathoth to your fields, for you are worthy of death. But I will not at this time put you to death, because you bore the Lord Yahweh's ark before David my father, and because you were afflicted in all in which my father was afflicted. So Solomon thrust Abiathar out from being priest to Yahweh, that he might fulfill Yahweh's word, which he spoke concerning the house of Eli in Shiloh. Comment: Solomon stripped Abiathar of the priesthood, sent him back to his hometown, and put him on probation. If he makes one false move, he's dead. This is the fulfillment of a prophecy from 1 Samuel 2:33 that all the male descendants of Eli the priest would either be expelled from the priesthood or die at a young age. With Abiathar gone, Zadok is priest. He's not a cursed descendant of Eli like Abiathar, and he's been faithful to David and Solomon. Now coming up, Joab heard about Adonijah being executed and about Abiathar being stripped of the priesthood, so he's fearing for his life. Verse 28. This news came to Joab, for Joab had followed Adonijah, although he didn't follow Absalom. Comment: he was faithful when Absalom revolted, but unfaithful when Adonijah revolted. Still in verse 28. Joab fled to Yahweh's tent and held on to the horns of the altar. King Solomon was told, Joab has fled to Yahweh's tent. Comment: that's the tabernacle 6 miles away in Gibeon. Still in verse 29. And behold, he is by the altar. Then Solomon sent Benaiah the son of Jehoiada, saying, Go, fall on him. Comment: that's the command to execute Joab. Joab knows he's guilty. That's why he's clinging to the altar. Verse 30. Benaiah came to Yahweh's tent and said to him, Thus says the king, Come out. He said, No, but I will die here. Benaiah brought the king word again, saying, Thus said Joab, and thus he answered me. Comment: in addition to recently supporting Adonijah, Joab's a double murderer, and there so happens to be a law of Moses that addresses this exact situation. If a murderer runs to the altar and clings to it, he should be forcibly removed and executed. Exodus 21:14. Let's see if Solomon knows the law. Verse 31. The king said to him, "Do as he has said, and fall on him, and bury him, that you may take away the blood which Joab shed without cause, from me and from my father's house. Yahweh will return his blood on his own head, because he fell on 2 men more righteous and better than he, and killed them with the sword, and my father David didn't know it. Abner the son of Ner, captain of the army of Israel, and Amasa the son of Jether, captain of the army of Judah. So their blood will return on the head of Joab and on the head of his offspring forever. But for David, for his offspring, for his house, and for his throne, there will be peace forever from Yahweh." Comment: In the law, the community is guilty if they don't execute the murderer, Numbers 35:33. So the killing of Joab won't make Solomon a murderer. On the contrary, Solomon will be purging himself and Israel of the blood of the victims, Deuteronomy 19:10 and 13, and 21:8 and 9. Solomon says, "Strip him off the altar and kill him," which is in accordance with the law. Verse 34. Then Benaiah the son of Jehoiada went up and fell on him and killed him, and he was buried in his own house in the wilderness. Comment: They buried Joab in his own house, which is his home place. But who's going to command the army now? Verse 35. The king put Benaiah the son of Jehoiada in his place over the army, and the king put Zadok the priest in the place of Abiathar. Comment: Now there's the case of Shimei the dirt thrower. David commanded Solomon to bring his gray head down to Sheol in blood. Verse 36. The king sent and called for Shimei and said to him, "Build yourself a house in Jerusalem and live there, and don't go anywhere else. For on the day you go out and pass over the brook Kidron, know for certain that you will surely die. Your blood will be on your own head." Shimei said to the king, "What you say is good. As my lord the king has said, so your servant will do." Comment: Solomon put Shimei on a short leash, we would say. He can't leave Jerusalem. Shimei knows he's guilty by his own admission, 2 Samuel 19:20, so he readily agreed to be confined in Jerusalem in lieu of something worse. Still in verse 38. Shimei lived in Jerusalem many days. At the end of 3 years, 2 of Shimei's slaves ran away to Achish, son of Maacah, king of Gath. They told Shimei, saying, "Behold, your slaves are in Gath." Shimei arose, saddled his donkey, and went to Gath to Achish to seek his slaves. And Shimei went and brought his slaves from Gath. Comment: For 3 years Shimei kept Solomon's commandment to stay in Jerusalem, but then 2 of his slaves ran away to Philistine territory, and he went to get them. Verse 41. Solomon was told that Shimei had gone from Jerusalem to Gath and had come again. The king sent and called for Shimei and said to him, "Didn't I adjure you by Yahweh and warn you, saying, Know for certain that on the day you go out and walk anywhere else, you shall surely die? You said to me, The saying that I have heard is good. Why then have you not kept the oath of Yahweh and the commandment that I have instructed you with?" The king said moreover to Shimei, "You know in your heart all the wickedness that you did to David my father. Therefore Yahweh will return your wickedness on your own head. But King Solomon will be blessed, and David's throne will be established before Yahweh forever." So the king commanded Benaiah the son of Jehoiada, and he went out and fell on him so that he died. The kingdom was established in the hand of Solomon. Comment: Back in the day, Shimei scoffed at David being king, and today he's still not coming under Solomon's authority. Those who scoff at Christ will come to the same end as Shimei, and in a complete diversion from what the scoffer thinks, Christ's throne will be established forever. Benaiah executed 3, and Solomon stripped the other of his office. Solomon is now firmly on the throne. When Christ returns, the time of patience and tolerance will be over. He'll establish his kingdom with a sword, mowing down the opposition. Revelation 2:16, 19:15, and 19:21. This will establish peace with no end. Isaiah 9:7. 1 Kings 3 is next at landofhavilah.net. 1 Kings 3.